Hey everybody, I'm showered and shaved, and you know what that means? That's right, it's time for another talking time-lapse video with me, your good buddy, Josh Davenport. As always, the comics on RGBros.com and all these videos here on YouTube are brought to you by the fine folks supporting the work over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Josh Davenport. Those are Brandon, Dan, Vivian, Matt, Mike, and Tobias. Thank you all for your continued support. Today we're doing a talking time-lapse of RG Bros comic Code Breaker. Not Combo Breaker, Code Breaker. Uh, this comic came about pretty much as a side effect of the frustration that I have sometimes with doing coding at my day job. I've been transitioning more to a lot of C# programming lately. The only type of programming I'd done before that was really like some HTML and CSS stuff like that, and it's been interesting. I'm always up for learning new things, and coding when things work is amazing. I don't know if you've tried. I'm sure some of you out there have. I got friends who write comics specifically based around coding and working in development, and they know a lot more than I do. Number one, so they definitely know the satisfaction of writing some lines and making stuff happen. And it's one thing to make a code come alive on a website and make it look a certain way. It's another thing to program for games and apps and write code and have things like not physically, but virtually happen inside of a virtual world. That's something I'm getting to do more of these days. And that's really amazing. Both of them are rewarding in their own way. This is just the newer version of things in my life, so that's why I'm sounding a little more ecstatic about it. Not that I care about it more than the other type, but it's the new thing. It's the new kid on the block. But this is so much about doing it properly. This comic is about doing it poorly, or multiple of our characters here. First, Baxter tries it, and he's probably actually giving it an earnest go and just having a rough go of it, because you're not many people. There's certain people out there, I'm sure, who hit the keyboard for the first time, getting the command line or whatever, or and they're just they're off to the races. But a lot of people, myself included, are not professionals day one. And so you go through a learning process. It's a bit of a curve there, as they say. And so that's what Baxter's experience. Reggie is just full of himself and thinks he can do, anything. And which is, sometimes it's a good attitude to have, and other times it leads you to do what happens in this comic, and he just busts up the computer. Plus, I just wanted to make a play on the word coding. So, medical coding. If you don't know what that is, you probably didn't get the joke, but it's like when somebody's heart stops and they're hooked up to a monitor. It's just like, boo! You hear it on all those medical shows all the time. That's the joke. So I just explained the joke. It's just something I don't like to do, because typically when I write something, it's either like people get it or they don't, and whatever. But sometimes you gotta lay it out there, or you don't have to. You just want to, and then you do it, which is what I just did. So sue me. You could sue me, but I don't have any money, so you're not gonna get anything. Anyways, one thing I enjoyed about doing this one, I've been, like I said in previous videos, I've been trying more to work on different angles and things like this. And while these are all kind of like front-facing, there's not a lot of dynamic angles or vanishing points or anything like that going on. It is like a slight turn around the table as the comic goes on, which I thought was fun to do. And again, it's always a challenge getting these three perfectly into a comic together because of their different sizes. I know I've mentioned that several times, but it's true, folks. It's very true. When you make most of the characters in your comic different heights, then you got to work the angles. That's why Baxter and Gilbert sit on the couch probably more than Reggie does. He used to get them up in frame sometimes. Doing a little bit of cheating on that one. But, oh, I was going to go ahead again, and just in case you missed the last video and you didn't hear me say it, this video, as well as the one that came just before it, OBS, which is the software I use to record these videos, something happened with the encoding on the final video for each one, so the very last part of both of these is left out. You still get all, pretty much like 99% of actually drawing and coloring and inking the comic. What you will miss is laying in dialogue, the text and the word bubbles at the end. So look forward to the next video if you want to see dialogue and text put in, because I know that one worked, which is coming out Thursday. But for this one, we're missing a bit, but we'll get it back. Let's see. Yeah, speaking of which, talking about computers, like this comic is kind of centered around, there's a little throwback right there. I'm just going to change tracks for a second, but, a couple comics ago, maybe it was it wasn't the last one, it was one before that, which is harkening back to Reggie and his snacking out of the machine. Just threw in a candy bar there for no reason, just because I wanted to. But, I'm looking into hopefully getting a new computer sometime in the near future, because the one I have now is a little over half a decade old, and it's starting to chug a little bit when it comes to processing videos, and every once in a while, I notice a lot now more when I'm working on the comic, I'll start getting like a processing wheel sometimes when I'm doing things that I never did before. So I think it's starting to have some issues. And it's a laptop, and this isn't a desktop, so I can't like just go swapping out parts or whatever. I mean, I could up the RAM possibly, but when you're talking about processing video nowadays, used to a lot of these programs like Adobe After Effects or Premiere rendered entirely on the CPU. Now they use a combination of CPU and GPU, and the GPU on my laptop is not very good. I think it's like, for the time it was all right. I think it's like a 2 gig 660M or something like that, which is not the worst thing on earth, but it's definitely not up to today's standards. And it's, like I said, it's a few years old, so it's probably getting a little long in the tooth. And eventually, it's going to become one of those things they just don't support anymore, would be my guess. Not that it's on their list or I've read up about it, but, that's typically the way these things go. So, I think I'm looking at getting a desktop for my next computer if I end up being able to afford one anytime in the near future. Because, of course, with those, you could always, you could swap certain components out in a laptop, and a lot more laptops, well, certain ones these days, make it easier for you to switch things in and out. Not so many of them make it easy to switch out video cards. But when you have a desktop, one, I don't take my laptop around that much. One, because it's like a 17-inch laptop, and so it's huge. It took me forever when I was taking it to classes in college to actually find a bag that would carry it without, it feeling like it was going to burst the zipper. And then I ended up later, like near the end of college, just taking the old, the first gen Surface Pro. I used that at school, and so that was not an issue at all to haul back and forth. But this beast, it's been good, but it's reaching the EOL, as they say in the retail business, end of life. I think it reached retail end of life many years ago, but now it's reaching the useful end of life. Hopefully you didn't hear me just take a drink of my tea over here. And if you did, I just admitted to doing it, so it happened. Deal with it. Drawing these chairs. Oh, so much fun to draw the chairs. I'm being facetious on that. Chairs are not so fun for me to draw. Maybe one day I'll enjoy them. a rare puffy-cheeked Reggie here in the final frame. God, I just like I know there are people who watch these videos who know a lot more about computers than I do. And I'm by no means a layman or a Luddite or anything, but I'm sure there are plenty of you just like cringing at the way I'm talking about freaking PCs. And if there is anybody out there who's like, oh, just get a Mac. I've worked with Macs. I work with Macs at work sometimes. I'm not a fan. Nothing against them. I'm not one of those people who's just like, PCs are better. They're just better and you're dumb. Because, I mean, they both have good qualities. I've worked and used PCs more throughout my life, and I'm just more comfortable with them. So that's what I tend to stick to. Macs are, they're all right. But it's just like, I don't know, it takes a different approach. And I haven't taken the time to just fully immerse myself in that environment. Plus, you know, aside from the iPad Pro, I mean, you can hook a like a tablet and stuff up to a Mac easily. And what I've heard about the iPad Pro Pencil is apparently great. It's fantastic, but it's still running a mobile OS, and I am not gonna sink any money into a nice pen technology tablet that runs a mobile OS. That's just never going to happen. But yeah, I mean, on top of everything else, I use PCs more. I'm just more comfortable with them, and I don't do a lot of PC gaming, but every once in a while I do like to game on my computer, and it's a whole lot harder to do that on a Mac. Not to mention they're just more expensive overall, which I think is maybe 50% earned through design because they always look nice. But, you know, the internals do not always justify the price on a Mac. So again, it sounds like I'm kind of bagging on Apple, and in a way I guess I am, but I really don't have anything against Mac. Well, mostly I don't have anything against people who use Macs or people who like Macs more than PCs. If that's your thing, and that's fine. It's just not mine. And I don't know if it's going to be any time in the near future. But anyways, so if you guys have any recommendations for, you know, a good PC, I've thought about building my own. I don't think I'm up to that or up for that yet. I understand that it can be a lot cheaper, but it's not as cheap if you mess it up and you end up, you know, frying your CPU or something when you're trying to do it because you're not putting on the correct amounts of thermal paste somewhere, or you're putting on too much thermal paste and, you know, just messing everything up. And I am too much of a coward to attempt it at this point in my life. So if you have any recommendations for pre-built PCs that don't cost, you know, $6,000, then by all means let me know. But woo, a breeze blew through here. Either that or it was me adjusting the pajama pants I use as a windscreen, because I'm just that fancy, folks. Some people like to go out and use things like that are actually made for the purpose of screening pops and wind, and I'm going to do that at some point. But right now I have to rely on the old pajama pants over the microphone bit. You found me out. I've been using this, going back to the comic here, you'll see I'm using this texture pen. I'm using that a bit more for sound effects on and off. I don't know if it came off as well for the red sound here, the beeping sound. I think it worked well for the electricity sound down there on the laptop. Ugh. I apologize if I sound a little lethargic in this video, but it's been a long week. I'm actually recording this on Saturday day. I usually do these at night, but here we are. We've reached the end of our time together for this week. And I'll see you all on Thursday. Thanks for chilling out, listening to me blab on about computers. Hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you later.